Everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're continuing our read-through of Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings, and we are up to chapter 40, entitled Eyes of Red and Blue. Our little opening chapter inscription reads, "Death upon the lips, sound upon the air, char upon the skin, from the last desolation." So we have here a quotation from a book entitled The Last Desolation. And if you'll remember back, these desolations were seasons in which the heralds would return to the world, to Roshar. And they would return to Roshar following their time of banishment, where they would hold the Voidbringers at bay. And when they no longer could suffer the torment, when they would break, they would return, and so would the Voidbringers to Roshar, and then they would have to fight them away again and trap them back in damnation, which is what it is referred to of where they went. And so this last desolation was the era in which the last time before the heralds broke the oath pact and banished one member of their crew of the 10 heralds to damnation to hold the Voidbringers himself. So that is a little reminder there. You can go back to the prologue and sort of read through that again if you wanted a little refresher. But we come to chapter 40 where Kaladin has now returned and he stumbles out of the barracks of Bridge 4. And you'll remember last time we were with him, Teft was observing him seemingly absorb the stormlight that is from these spheres. And the smoke of it was absorbed into his body, and a part of his injuries began to heal right in front of Teft. And Teft seemed shocked, terrified, and amazed, seemingly knowing something that we don't know yet. We don't get really any answers, but we do see that Kaladin, with his surgeon's brain, is very surprised that he is doing so well. In fact, we kind of get some inner thoughts with him where he says things like, "I should be dead. What is going on?" His side was blazing with pain, but compared to what he should be feeling, it was as if he just had mere soreness. So he does not know how he has responded and recovered so well. He stumbles out of Bridge 4, and Bridge 4 is doing bridge runs. They are practicing and training, and he is pleased to see that even with him indisposed, they are continuing the training. When a number of them stop and stare, and then they sort of come around and surround him very reverently, but very eagerly. He asks how long he's been out, and Moash, one of the members of Bridge 4, says 10 days. And Kaladin was thinking, there's no way I have been here any less than 3 weeks. But he said 10 days, and nobody corrected Moash, so he does not know what is happening. However, as they are sort of speaking and getting reacquainted, horns sound, and there is another chasm fiend, there is another gem heart, and Bridge 4 is on duty. So they all line up, and Kaladin wants to go with them. Rock talks him out of it quite forcefully. So Kaladin offers to go with Lopin, who doesn't have an arm, and Dabin, who is still injured, and fill water skins and walk behind Bridge 4. Rock is still not pleased, but he acquiesces to Kaladin wanting to go. But what it does give Kaladin a chance to do, really through the rest of the chapter until we get after the battle, is Kaladin is able to watch the battle. And he's never been able to watch a battle before. He's been in it, right? He's been at the tip of the spear because Bridge 4 always goes first if Bridge 4 is there, because no one likes Bridge 4. And so he actually is able to see the entire scope. And because he was in an army before he was branded as a slave and the whole situation began, he is able to see the strategy. And what hits him and really bothers him. And actually the rest of the chapter, he is sort of slipping back into his seemingly depressive state where he is losing hope. What strikes him in the battle is that Sadeas, High Prince Sadeas, brings about twice as many bridge crews as possible. And as he's overlooking the battle, after Bridge 4 gets the bridges down, they all come back from hide as they normally do until the battle's done. And they're all watching together. There's a member of Bridge 4 named Sigzil, who Kaladin does not know very well, doesn't say much of anything. Well, Sigzil overhears Kaladin and Rock talking about strategy, and he sort of interjects some opinions, and Kaladin notices, like, this guy kind of knows what he's talking about, and he sounds reasonably educated. He's able to follow along with the strategy and the logic of what is happening, and they sort of figure out in the moment that there's a reason why Sadeas brings about twice as many bridge crews and why he doesn't allow them to have any type of shield or protection. He's planning on the Parshendi, though they should forget the bridge crews and target the soldiers. He's banking on the fact that they are going to be so tempted to kill non-protected soldiers, bridgemen, that they can't but help themselves from shooting at the bridge crews. And then when they do see a bridge collapse because a number of bridgemen have been killed, they get even more engaged in shooting down bridgemen because it's that sort of instant gratification. And they don't shoot at the army. They don't shoot at the cavalry, the actual trained soldiers. And Sigzil and Kaladin sort of figure out together that mathematically you can always find uneducated, dark-eyed criminals to throw into the bridge crews, but every one arrow that goes to a bridgeman is not going to a soldier who is much more valuable, much more difficult to train, much more costly to prepare. And so Sadeas brings twice as many bridgemen because he is counting on the fact that they are going to die. He actually needs them to die because if they're absorbing arrows, the army is not absorbing arrows. And though Kaladin probably could have figured that out, he was just so caught up in his own bridge runs of how important the bridges were to get them across the chasms that he would never think that, as important as that is for the battle strategy, that there was equally disdain for the bridges and the bridgemen. So that just sort of hits him, and man, he is bothered by that. He gets a new wave of hopelessness, and as they return to camp, Sadeas won the gem heart, but it's not a very hopeful moment for Kaladin. And so they get back and they're having their evening stew. Rock is making the pot of stew and everyone's waiting. They're all laughing. No one died from Bridge 4, so they are even more excited about that. Kaladin and Sigzil, though, are there talking because this is seemingly now a new connection they have. And Kaladin asks some, pressing questions about where he's from. How are you educated and yet a bridgeman? And he sort of gets the fact from him that Sigzil had tried to kill somebody. He doesn't get any information about who or how. But Sigzil returns sort of some comments and lets him know that he hated Kaladin early on because he felt like he was giving these bridgemen false hope. But now he can see that, like a doctor, he is simply giving them medicine so that they will die happy. And he says, I can't be mad about that, and I actually respect you for doing that. It doesn't help Kaladin feel better. In the moment, though, one of the man from Bridge 4 named Maps, because he has a birthmark on his chest that he swears is the exact dimensions of Alethkar, the country. Kaladin doesn't see the resemblance, but Maps stands up and he presents Rock with a present that all the bridgemen chipped in together and got Rock some items to shave. They got him a razor, a sharpening stone, a brush, and actually some like shaving cream, because Rock's people, the Horn Eaters, they take their appearance very seriously. And they know that just his beard growing unruly is not just an annoyance, it's actually like a cultural offense. And so that just weighs on Rock. And Rock is so pleased. He rushes off immediately to go shave like a child would, to immediately go try out his new toy. And they all feel really good about themselves. We conclude with the title of the chapter, Eyes of Red and Blue. And that's a story that Sigzil shares from a country, a people near a sea. For their criminals, they could choose to die, be killed, or they could be essentially kind of like Kaladin was, given a chance at random justice. And if they survived, they could be let free. And what it was is they would be tied and thrown over a cliff, sort of dangling, and these like great shells in the water would eat them or would not eat them. And if they survived for a week of dangling there, they would be set free. And Kaladin asked if anyone ever survived, and Sigzil shook his head no, but the prisoners almost always take the chance. They prefer the false hope than the certain death. And they would say of people in this situation that they have eyes of red and blue, red for the blood dripping and blue for the water. And Kaladin really thought about that sort of morbid picture. And when he considered what they were doing as bridgemen, certain death, but they chose a false hope, the eyes of red and blue, that sort of really latched on to his thought process. But he comments as we conclude, I don't know if that fits us. For him to have eyes of red and blue, Kaladin would have to believe that there was at least a small chance that the bridge crews could survive. And that night, Kaladin had trouble convincing himself. And so, though he survived, though he thinks he saw the Stormfather's face in the high storm, right? This sort of mystic character who oversees the storm, the Stormfather. He thinks it must have just been a hallucination. Though he has survived, he can now see why Sadeas doesn't really care that he survived. Though he said he has been vindicated, because bridgemen are just meant to die. And actually, if they don't die, the battle plan has failed. And so will Kaladin really descend into a time of depression? We'll see in upcoming chapters. But he's meted some new people. Bridge 4 is growing closer together. And is that false hope going to be enough? Or is it all useless in the end? We'll see in upcoming chapters. But thanks so much for watching. You can like and subscribe. And we will look forward to getting back together in the next chapter. But until then, enjoy the story.